Good morning.
Good morning.
Our first reading comes from Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 to 10. The call of Jeremiah. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. All-Sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. But the Lord said to me, Do not say, I am only a child. You must go to everyone I send you to, and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you, and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth, and said to me, Now I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and to tear down, to destroy and overthrow, and to build and to plant. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Second reading is 1 Corinthians 13, verses 1 to 13. This is titled Love. And now I will show you the most excellent way. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be still. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see by a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Our gospel lesson comes from Luke chapter 4, verses 21 through 30. Then he began to say to them, Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. All spoke well of him and were amazed at his gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, Is this not Joseph's son? He said to them, Doubtless you will quote to me the proverb, Doctor, cure yourself. And you will say, Do here also in your hometown the things that we have heard you did at Capernaum. And he said, Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown. But the truth is, there were many widows in Israel in the time of Elijah, when the heavens was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there were severe famine all over the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them, except to the widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elijah, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman and Syrian. When they heard this, all the synagogues were filled with rage. All in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up and they drove him out of town. They led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they might hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. Hear the Spirit saying to the church. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Ever find yourself in the middle of a problem and then you're kind of scratching your head about, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I don't understand what happened. You got to kind of look back before you can figure out what's going on. It's kind of what we have this morning in our scripture reading. To understand what's going on, we have to look back to last week. And last week, Jesus goes home and is well received, and he's at the synagogue, he's reading Torah, and he reads this passage from Moses. What Jesus reads to the people is, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of the sight of the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Now there's another verse in there that Jesus has left off, and that's about the Lord's vengeance. So not only is Jesus just reading the Torah to them, he's interpreting it. Now there's also this nice little phrase in there about the year of the Lord's favor. And that refers to this concept of Jubilee. Now biblical scholarship doesn't know if this is something that was actually practiced, or it was just an idea that was always something that was going to come. The idea of Jubilee is the total forgiveness of all debts and the returning of property to the previous owner, or perhaps to God. So every 50 years or so should be the Jubilee, in which all debts, not only financial debts, but a lot of financial debts as well, but also those debts that we carry with us about, well, that person owes me a favor. I did something for them. All of that would have been let go of every 50 years. Like I said, we don't really know if it was something they did or just an idea that they had about something that was going to come, the year of the Lord's favor. So, Jesus is reading this to them, and he's saying that it's now. This is the year of the Lord's favor. Well, to me, that doesn't sound like something we would run Jesus out of town for. It's also a good thing, right? And something I already believed. Well, the trick comes when we look at this little word, doctor, cure yourself. Now, when it says yourself, it could mean the personal, but it could also mean the country, the whole area. And if it refers to an area, well, then it starts to make sense. Because that would include not only Jews, but Gentiles as well. So the Jewish people thought the year of the Lord's favor was just about them. They were God's chosen people. And Jesus is saying to them, it's you and it's everybody else. Everybody is included in Jesus' call for Jubilee, the forgiveness of all debts. In the church, we've got these seasons. We start out, who knows where we start out? But, we kind of start out, in my mind, we start out with Advent, the anticipation of Christ coming. And then we have Christmas, where we celebrate Christ coming. And then we move into the time of Lent. Traditionally, this solemn kind of march where we remember the work of Jesus leading up to Jesus' death. And then we have Jesus' death on Good Friday. Then we have the resurrection. And then we have Pentecost, where we celebrate the Spirit coming down on the people. And then we have this ordinary time until we move back into the season of Advent. It's a cycle. But it's very similar to what's going on in Scripture today. That we always believe, we're always in the practice of saying, the year of the Lord is now. It is coming. It is something that is in the future that is coming, and it is something that's here in this moment. And that God's grace is coming and has already arrived. Just like Jesus, when we celebrate Easter, we're not remembering an historical event. When we think about Christmas and celebrate Christmas, it's not just an historical event. It's something we say is happening now, right here in this moment, in our hearts and our lives. That Christ is coming. Christ is being born. And Jesus is proclaiming that that grace is open to everybody. Not just the chosen people, but everybody. We're always practicing this act of Jubilee. We're always getting ready to let go of the way things used to be. Jesus is there preaching and teaching. He's telling the people, we're not going to practice Jubilee like it's something that's just coming. We're going to practice Jubilee in the here and the now, right now. It's coming true in my reading this scripture to you, as Jesus flourished in the synagogue. And it leaves off the part about any vengeance from the Lord. It's about letting go of those notions about, well, we've always done it that way. Well, that's the way it's always been. That's what the tradition is. Well, the tradition is good. That's what Jesus is reading to everyone. But it's also something new. It's the Christmas story. It's the Easter story. It's the story of Pentecost. That God is moving in our lives in the present moment. Now.